Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. And here we're in another kind of fascinating place. This particular area is right along the banks of the Red River in Manitoba, Canada, and we are just north of the US-Canada border, near the town, I guess, of Emerson, Manitoba. And so this would be the kind of extreme southern Manitoba. And the Red River is a river that frequently floods, and it did recently. It's just coming down from a pretty significant flooding season here. We're in mid-July, or I think it's July 10th here, and it's a beautiful summers here, warm, humid, and the river is just kind of going down. As you can see, there is a lot of drying silt and mud and in these kind of drainage ditches here, and the river was significantly higher, maybe even 20 feet higher than this recently. So we're going to take a look at the kind of riparian zone right along the river. There is not a lot of it, as this area is quite developed agriculturally. There's very few natural areas left, as it's quite productive farmland, and there's very little room for places like this. But along the river, the Red River here, we do have a little bit kind of a strip on either side. Some of the things to mention here: how Manitoba's considered a prairie province. However, it's kind of a transition from prairie to both boreal and some of the southeastern US type southern Ontario type forests. So we have some fascinating mixes of trees, right from boreal, long grass prairie into kind of these forested type areas where we have large cottonwoods, things like that. So we move away from the western prairie aspen dominated ecosystems and into something with elms and oaks and cottonwood, that type of thing. So let's have a look around the area and see what we can find. Okay, here we have an enormous example of a cottonwood tree, Populus deltoides. I believe that's how you say it. And this is an old, very large example. It's open crowned. The trunks often split kind of near the ground, and we have these enormous branches coming off it. And I say enormous because this is at least 2 meters, around 6 feet across at the base. This is growing in a low area and gets plenty of water. The water table would be just under here, no matter what time of year. I picked up a leaf off the ground so we can kind of see what that looks like. So you can see it's not elongated like a balsam poplar. It has a little bit of toothed edges around, but not completely around the leaf. But this is the cottonwood. And we have another example just over here. So they're quite common in this area. I'm going to try and do my best to back up and get a better view here. It's just a great example of a very large tree growing along in kind of this riparian zone here. So there you have it. And let's go see what else we can find. Well, here is a good example of all this silt that's deposited during these floods. And the silt would really, in the long run, be beneficial to most of the trees here. But you can see a deer struggling through the muck here, as well as my footprints there. So it's still wet and it's quite thick. As it's drying out, it's kind of shrinking, and you see that classic kind of cracked pattern. But it's really prevalent through this entire area. So this silt from this year's flood will eventually help these trees with nutrients and that type of thing, and help these trees grow large. Here's another example, another species of tree. This is a green ash, and there's quite a few in here. And again, a little bit different vegetation than the western prairies. Green ash do grow there, however, they're mostly, in cultivation. So these are natural here. And just and another example, we have a small elm, American elm here. You can see the leaves here. They are toothed all the way around. And yeah, another example of the incredible variety of trees in this area. Okay, another kind of interesting area here. We have a little bit of a clearing, and you can see the undergrowth extremely thick and almost like a kind of a single species undergrowth here. And I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it grows very densely, and it's about 2.5-3 feet tall here, and pretty steady through the whole area. So really interesting. And it's the unfortunate thing is it seems to be home to a whole bunch of mosquitoes. So I'll get out of this spot, but just a really beautiful undergrowth area. Okay, there's another species here. This is the Manitoba maple, or also known as the box elder. And it is a smallish tree. These are quite small. They grow a little bit bigger than this. I believe it's up to around 30 feet or so, 10 meters-ish. As the wind blows, we can kind of see the underside of the leaves, and then kind of come back to the top here, if I can. Just bear with me here. There we go. So we can see that there's kind of a uneven pattern. The leaves are generally in threes, and we have kind of the edges. Some edges are more deeply segmented than others. Here's a good example of one. It doesn't quite get the real maple type leaves that most people would look for in a maple, but it's not really a true maple that way. So anyway, here's another species, the Manitoba maple, or box elder. Okay, so here we are in another area with some mature trees, and these are bur oaks. And they're not quite as big as you may see in eastern US and Canada. However, for this area, these are quite large oaks. Let's have a closer look at the leaves here. As you can see, the classic oak shape. And again, it's very much a difference of this the eastern side or edge of the prairies. As this transitions into the west, trees like the bur oak and that type of thing become a little more shrubby, and through Saskatchewan and into Alberta they pretty much disappear. So just a fascinating area with a bur oak forest. This is a little bit higher and not quite as wet, and would flood a little less than the other area, but this area did flood this year. There's quite a bit of evidence of that. So the bur oak, one more example here of a bur oak. This is the biggest tree in the area that I'm in here, and you can see that this is quite an old tree. we have a lot of deep furrows in the bark, a lot of lichen growth. The leaves are a little bit larger on this tree than some of the others in the area. I don't know if that's necessarily something related to the age of the tree or the size of the tree, but this is a very big tree for the area. You know, 2.5 feet across or so, a little less than a meter, and very old for the area, one of the larger ones here. So just a real nice looking tree, and quite old. Not quite sure what the age of some of these trees in this area is. They grow, you know, obviously a little bit different in each climate zone, but this one's been here for a while. Just a little something of interest here. The volume of small frogs here, oops, it's just about fell there, is pretty amazing. You can see this pond is just crawling with them. And I'm not quite sure what kind they are. It's a little hard to get a good look, but just an incredible amount of small frogs. With all the mosquitoes though, looks like they have a lot to eat, but wanted to just kind of show just how productive this area is. It's pretty interesting. Okay, so here we are with next to a larger American elm. It has lost a bunch of branches and is growing back. It's in a bit of a densely forested area, but the reason I stopped in this spot is there are two, I believe you'd consider that two, enormous cottonwoods here, and it's hard to really see how big these are, but each trunk is well over 2.5 meters, maybe 10 feet across at the max. Well, maybe not quite, maybe about 8. It is hard to estimate these things, but fully outstretched arms would be close to, not even close to going the diameter here. And just kind of a hand for some scale, it is very rough bark. This is obviously an older tree. Cottonwoods don't live as long as some large trees, but this certainly would be an older cottonwood. Just incredible. And unfortunately, I can't really get the scale here, but I might step back and just try and get as much of a view as we can here, because these are really big, and I wasn't really expecting to see trees of this size here, but very lucky to see it, and very impressive. So I'll step back and then we'll take a look. Okay, so unfortunately you can't see the trunk as we get further back. It's a little just too densely there's just, the undergrowth is just too dense there. So but here we are in a little bit of a meadow beside this tree, and you can see it poking out. It's not extremely tall, but probably 60 to 80 feet, and just a beautiful tree. So I kind of think that's a fitting spot to end the video, admiring this old giant here alongside the Red River in southern Manitoba. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.